The intention is not to scare anyone, but actually to encourage. I think there are a lot of positive things that are already going on, so we want to encourage each other to harness the positives that we are adopting, but also to highlight the areas where we are not improving. You asked me to introduce myself, which is not very easy, but in very brief terms, I am the Director General of the Financial Intelligence Unit. The FIU is in Zimbabwe is established as an administrative or as a unit within the administrative establishment of the central bank, the Reserve Bank. But it enjoys operational independence. And many people misunderstand that. Again, to think independence means you must be staying in your own building that is far away from, not as close as possible to another building, and maybe somewhere in the desert. But what operational independence simply means is that in the performance of our duties as the FIU, in the performance of my duty as the Director General, I'm not supposed to take instructions from anyone. So independence has nothing to do with the physical location. You can actually be staying on the moon away from most people, but as long as you are communicating with certain authorities, they can still give you instructions on what to do from there. So it's a function of actually the relationships and what the law says and what safeguards are there. So I'm a lawyer by profession. In my previous life, I worked as a magistrate for many years. It was from around 1993 to around 2004, before I then joined the central bank as a legal counsel, as a legal advisor in the central bank from 2004 until 2011, when I then joined the FIU as a deputy director in the FIU. Then I was appointed to head the unit in 2020. Yeah? Oh, is it 20? Yeah, 2020. Yeah, so I think that's briefly about me and about the FIU. Today my task is a relatively simple one, to deliver a keynote address. So I'll start with the salutations, although I notice the number of the dignitaries are no longer here. Honorable Minister of Information, Communication Technology, Postal and Courier Services, Honorable Dr. T. Mavetera, in absentia, but today ably represented by a Deputy Minister, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, Dr. J. Mshayavanu, again in absentia, but again represented today by the Director of ICT in the Central Bank. Esteemed presenters, panelists, and distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Financial Intelligence Unit of Zimbabwe, I have the honor once again to address this gathering of experts, practitioners, regulators, and policymakers in the information technology and communication technology field. Technology, particularly in the area of automation, fintech, and regtech, that is regulatory technology, is increasingly becoming a key enabler, not only in the provision of financial services, but also in the prevention and detection of financial crime, with the ultimate goal of safeguarding the integrity of our financial systems, and in the process protecting our citizens, who are the ultimate beneficiaries and users of financial services. So adoption and implementation of technological solutions to to the provision and regulation of financial services as anchor and support at the country's very highest economic development policy, the National Development Strategy 1, or NDS 1 as we know it. One of the 14 national priorities under NDS 1 focuses on the development of a digital economy. So it is therefore imperative that all institutions in the country that play a role in the delivery of financial services or the regulation thereof should be aligned to the NDS 1 objectives and priority areas. Then Zimbabwe, under the coordination of the Financial Intelligence Unit, recently concluded the country's third money laundering national risk assessment, meant to identify and assess the country's money laundering risks and to come up with the mitigatory strategies. Arising from the money laundering national risk assessment, the exercise has given birth to the country's anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism 5-year strategy covering the period 2025 to 2029. The anti-money laundering 5-year strategy, which replaced the previous one, which expired in 2024, it has 5 pillars. But today I want to focus on the 5th pillar. And it reads leveraging on technology to combat money laundering and related financial crimes. And let me cite even more recently the words of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, in his keynote address at the signing ceremony of performance contracts by senior officials of government institutions on only the day before yesterday, which was on Monday, where he directed government institutions to adopt and implement measures to automate their processes as a way of improving service delivery to the public. In fact, in the performance contracts of all the different ministers and government institutions, there is an item that measures at the end of the year what steps the institution and the head of that institution have taken to promote the use of technology for the betterment of the lives of the people they serve. So all this dovetails very well with the topic that I have been asked to present on today in the keynote speech, harnessing automation, fintech, and policies development, financial intelligence notes. I do not intend to delve into great detail on the subject matter, and will defer the detailed dissection of the various issues that arise from this to the various substantive presenters and the discussions. Suffice for me to highlight some of the key areas in which financial service providers and regulators can enhance the use of technology to deter, detect, and ensure financial crimes are investigated and prosecuted. I take note that a good number of non-bank financial service providers in the country are already adopting innovative technologies in providing financial services to the public. However, while such businesses are investing in fintech driven by business imperatives and profitability considerations, not enough investment is being done in the area of detecting and reporting suspected money laundering and related financial crimes. Indeed, the financial service providers feel compelled to deploy fraud detection systems aimed at ensuring that they don't lose money, they don't get defrauded themselves, and essentially protecting their own bottom line. However, we have noted a reluctance to deploy resources by these institutions to detect and report transactions relating to funds illicitly acquired elsewhere and then being laundered through their services and platforms. In fact, very often they are very happy to take business from criminals knowingly and unknowingly if that helps improve their profits. Whatever steps have been taken to date in adopting new technologies, both by financial service providers and by regulators, including by the FIU itself, where I come from, it is way nowhere near enough considering where the rest of the world is moving towards. I am quite conscious that we have not done enough even as the Financial Intelligence Unit to adopt the use of artificial intelligence, which I am quite sure will go a very long way in improving the way in which we detect financial crimes. We really sit on a lot of data that we get from banks, a lot of data that sits with various other government bodies, which with the right tools, analyzed with the right tools, we should be able to more efficiently pick up patterns that are indicative of financial crime and be able to detect illicit proceeds that are being laundered through our economy at better rates. Some of the areas where we lack as a country, where a lot of improvement needs to be done, include the following. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm going to highlight some of the key areas in which we really need to improve adoption of the technology, not only to improve our business and to improve profitability of our businesses, but also to preserve the integrity of our financial systems and to make sure that criminals do not have convenient and easy platforms to clean their dirty funds. One key area, I think there are some speakers who have already touched on it in a peripheral way, the digital identity verification, because that is one of the key cornerstones of preventing money laundering is KYC. And one speaker earlier on made reference to how cumbersome KYC processes are in the country in terms of allowing customers to open bank accounts. And I want to think with the adoption of the right technologies, we should be able to really streamline those processes, but at the same time, without compromising the financial integrity of our economy and financial system. In the area of digital identity verification, what we have noticed in Zimbabwe as the Financial Intelligence Unit and other regulators is especially mobile money service providers, non-bank financial institutions, they've tended to want to cut corners. Again, one speaker indicated, maybe I'll also want to try to answer it at the same time, that probably fintechs should be allowed to go direct to the public to provide financial services. But financial services, as my colleague from the central bank indicated, are a very sensitive and regulated area where you need to protect the public. So, which is why it is reserved for licensed financial institutions. If someone has their technology and want to provide financial services, there is nothing that can stop a fintech company once it meets all the requirements of a financial service provider, all the safeguards that are needed to apply for the appropriate license and get licensed either as a bank or as a mobile money service provider, but not to have the technology provider go direct to the people to provide a very sensitive regulated service that needs a lot of safeguards to protect the public. So in the area of digital identity verification, what we have noted with financial service providers, especially in the mobile money sphere, is that because they want to cut costs as much as they can, they sometimes allow customers to what they call remote customer onboarding and allow customers to open bank accounts. They say you are opening from the comfort of your home, which is very nice if you just put it across like that in words. But what you want in a system like that is to make sure that you make things easy for the ordinary people to access financial services, but not at the same time opening the back door for criminals to then get in and also start using financial services for illicit purposes. So it's a very difficult balancing act. The regulations for KYC are put for a reason. So in Zimbabwe, very few institutions, or in fact, I haven't seen any that have adopted enough in terms of biometric identification systems that can enable you to identify customers remotely, linking it to other data that is held by other government agencies. I like the example that was given of China, where probably we're presenting just a card, your equivalent of a NASA card, as Dr. Rukanda said, then all your information is there. So with that kind of a person in China, probably there's really no need when you go to a bank to open a bank account to ask you for all sorts of, they can really even in the comfort of your home safely, because they have the technology and the safeguards, be able to have your bank account open, because they will have all the information in real time of where you are living and where you work and what you are up to, which in Zimbabwe, unfortunately, we don't have. So we can't start adopting that technology because we have put in place the relevant infrastructure. So I think we have enough of that information held by different government departments. The Postal and Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe holds mobile telephone numbers of people. They have other agencies that hold different. If we can find a technology of harnessing all that data together so that we create a digital identity of every citizen, then it becomes very easy for us to be able to onboard, for financial institutions to onboard customers remotely using digital identity verification. But before we adopt such holistic technologies, I think it is incumbent upon each innovator, each fintech entity to come up with systems that can be used in terms of verifying the identity. We recently fined a couple of banks because what they simply did is when you open your account, they then just say, okay, can you send your a photo, take a picture of your ID or passport and send it to us. And then they check with the Registrar General. They say, yeah, we verified the identity of this customer. So he exists. But you say, no, you haven't verified the identity of the customer. How do you know that the person who has given you sent the copy of the ID on the email or on WhatsApp is the very person who owns the one of that? Without actually backing up technology, you can't cut those corners. And so a lot of work needs to be done in developing digital identity verification systems at institutional level, but leveraging, first of all, on the Registrar General, which is very open in terms of allowing financial service providers to link up with their systems and verify identity, but that has to be backed with other technologies that make sure that the person who is presenting those documents is who he says he is. So I think for going forward, for us, the regulators and other policymakers, we need to come up with a system that harnesses all the information that is held by different government agencies, put them together, Registrar General's office, the Zimbabwe ZEC Electoral Commission, they hold a lot of data. Potras, they hold a lot of data. NASA, they hold a lot of data. Zimbra, they hold a lot of data. If that can be synchronized, it will be very easy at the end of the day to have a single view of a citizen's information, and KYC becomes very simple. So that is an area where we need to improve. Then, apart from digital identity verification, there is not enough that is being done, like I said earlier on, to invest in real-time transaction monitoring, especially now the technologies that were being used yesterday are now outdated. AI-powered systems are probably now the way to go in terms of transaction monitoring, and where you leverage on machine learning algorithms to detect suspicious patterns and automated alerts and reporting swiftly, almost in real time. Currently, again, the banks, they have all the technology. They call it technology, but where there's some system that highlights some alerts, then those alerts over some days or weeks, some people have to pour through those alerts and try to go through them one by one, and that process is very inefficient, and a lot of useful information is not detected and reported. Then, apart from investing in areas of transaction monitoring using AI, even for us as both the regulated financial service providers and the FIU, the area of predictive analytics, I think, is also a key area which we need to do a little bit more, which we can use technology to forecast potential fraudulent activity that can be used again to protect the institution's own funds and assets and that of its clients, but also it can also be used to detect criminals who are trying to abuse the platform for illegal purposes. Then someone referred to blockchain-based solutions. Again, I think there's been a slow uptake of blockchain technology, but to me, this has the potential to revolutionize, again, the way we keep records and then with the way we do KYC as well. So I think blockchain technology probably can even be combined with what I talked about earlier on about biometric customer identification systems, and the beauty with blockchain technology is that it's incorruptible, it's reliable, and if we have a holistic way in which we can adopt that as regulated institutions, but also as regulators, that would really go a long way in helping with compliance and record keeping. Then regulators themselves probably have not done enough in terms of adopting regulatory technology that helps in streamlining compliance processes and also in automated reporting and audit trails. We rely a lot on banks giving financial institutions reporting to us suspicious transactions, but if we use the right systems and gather data from the banks, some of these we can be able to pick it up ourselves if we adopt the right technologies. So these are just some of the different areas where I feel as a country, as financial service providers, as regulators, we need to invest a little bit more if we are to keep up with where the world is going. Having given those few pointers, what I now look forward to is hearing more robust discussions around these different areas in the course of this seminar, and then hopefully to hear what some of the recommendations would come out of there, and some of which I'm sure will be very useful to policymakers, some of them to us as regulators as well, and then some of them to regulated entities. So with those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I end my keynote address and wishing you all very productive and robust discussions and deliberations. I thank you all.